James is having another one of these giant wraps. They're really huge wraps. And this time, it's basically the same as last time, but I cut the cucumbers differently, and I put a taste of Thailand seasoning on the fried vegetables. And James will be adding shrimp to it, but I didn't pick the shrimp apart because yuck. And I'll be talking about Deadly Illusions, which got the top of the stack rating, above Okja, or however you pronounce that, Killing Eve Season 2, and 52577. And James is going to talk about Where to Invade Next, which is a Michael Moore thing. And I don't know where that would fit in the pile, in the stack rating, but James will tell you about that, because I didn't watch that one. So he'll give you that at the end.
Major league problems.
So you can go ahead and shell your shrimp. It's okay if I roll it up then? No, shell your shrimp. Okay. You can put it in there. Because well, whatever.
I don't know if I want shrimp on it.
You don't want shrimp?
I don't eat it with other things, so is that okay? Sorry
yeah, that's okay. I suppose you could always eat your shrimp. Take a bite of shrimp and take a bite of wrap. So
I just don't eat shrimp that way. So
okay.
About the only thing I do sometimes is put some dip on it, but not all the time.
These big wraps are really hard to roll up.
I kind of find shrimp disgusting. I'll eat it on pizza, but.
And it's funny because when I wrap up those big wraps for James, then I think of that Austin Powers, the Scottish villain, and how he sings I want my baby back, baby back, baby back rib. Because, I mean, honestly, you could fit a newborn in that little thing. So that villain would love those wraps. Anyway, Deadly Illusions, kind of some dark humor, but then we're talking about some mystery. It's dark, right? These murder mysteries, people get murdered. And how did this get the top of the stack rating? Because honestly, although I had recognized at least the main actress, and I don't know, I'm sure I've seen some of the other people in some other things, I just didn't recognize them, but it seemed not really Hollywood, right? So not at all Harlequin or Hallmark, because there's some darker stuff in here than Hallmark could touch, and not exactly made for TV either, it seems. So, but anyway, I'm really glad I watched it to the end. It's a little longer than one would expect. It's almost 2 hours long. And honestly, at the end, I don't want to give it away, so just watch it. Because at first you'll be watching and you go, yeah, okay, I got the clues, I'm picking up on this stuff and whatever. And you're thinking, well, this is maybe poorly scripted. It is not. Watch it to the end, and then you'll wonder. So, or at least you should. So, even though it maybe didn't have the highest production values or whatever, it's pretty good. It's a good mystery. I like a good mystery. Okja. This one had a lot of subtitles. Now I think they were supposed to be, or maybe they were, I don't know. Like, I thought they were supposed to be in Japan at first, but then it turned out they were saying that they were wanting to go back to the Korean mountains. So
Okja doesn't seem like a Japanese kind of word. They don't set up words that way.
All right. So in any case, so it ended up, it was set partially in Korea and partially in the United States. So there's a lot of big name actors in this that you will recognize. Jake Gyllenhaal and Tilda Swinton.
They say Gyllenhaal, but it's...
I have no idea.
I heard it on Tom Power, whatever her name is, the woman.
Paul Dano. So there's people that you will recognize in this movie, and it's a heartwarming sort of thing. This little huge creature is supposed to be a genetically modified, although the company who produced this creature is lying about the fact but it's supposed to be a genetically modified pig. So it's really huge, but really friendly, and it has like low impact on the environment and whatever. And
It's really nice too.
yeah, it's nice. They're this little girl and they're best
It's a little
friends.
girl.
You know, they've
Oh,
always
it's a girl.
yeah with the and with a girl creature.
Oh, it's a girl creature.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, but she's raised this creature, but its property, as with genetically modified products, she is property of the company that made her. And so this movie should get you thinking about genetic modification, and not necessarily, is the food, safe, or are they producing food so that it'll be lower impact on the environment and cheaper for people to consume. Because if you look into the history of genetic modification, you'll find that hasn't been the case. They have not. You could say golden rice, but I don't think so. So that hasn't been the trend. They have not been producing things. Companies have not been producing genetically modified products for those purposes. They have been producing them for other purposes. Property rights, for example. So when you look into how genetic modification, how it's spread through the environment, we've looked at that it was pseudo sort of documentary. It had Christopher Walken in it and stuff a while back. It was a story about a farmer in Saskatchewan, and I just pointed that way, which Saskatchewan is not north of me. It's funny. I suppose I don't know why I did that.
It's kind of like because we drive that way.
Yeah.
Once we get off.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. That was a very woman thing of me to do. So, because I drive that way to go to Saskatchewan. Little roundabout. Got to get to the Crow's Nest or
corridor.
And then take me home. Oh well. Anyway, women do that.
It doesn't matter so long as you get there, man.
Yeah.
So long as people don't misinterpret the way you're giving directions.
Yeah. So anyway, and then if the company that makes this genetically modified being, maybe a very nice little being, big being, whatever, but if it's owned by a company, its genetics is owned by the company, its life is owned by the company, and if that life spreads throughout the environment or impacts the environment in some way, when agriculture is impacting the environment in some way, like say maybe there's a disease in chicken farms and it spreads and kills a whole bunch of Canada geese and other birds, then that's an issue. When our agriculture production is impacting the environment, then people have to just look down the road and say, okay, wait, if those genetics, say in this little product, find their way into other agriculture products and products out in the wild, then those products are then owned by the company. What will people have left to consume? And what will the price of agriculture products, no matter if they're less expensive, which they haven't tended to be, but if they're less expensive, then will they be in the future? If the company owns all the food, they have a monopoly on all the food, then all the possible, whether it's out in wilds of nature or not, then really that's the issue. So
basically they poison your food supply.
Yeah.
And then they charge you for the pleasure and the privilege.
Yeah. Because they're like, if you start seed saving, a lot of farmers will seed save, and then if their seed is contaminated by a genetically modified product, then that seed no longer belongs to them. Even if they have never owned a genetically modified product. They have never grown it. They've never bought it themselves, but somehow a neighboring field or whatever, maybe the company itself is polluting farms on purpose so that the seed is then their property. Who knows? But in any case, it's a major concern. And whether you watch a movie like this and you go, oh yeah, you know, free the whatever, that's why this did not get the top of the stack, because they kind of missed the whole point of what the real problem is. And Okja, as cute as he was, whatever, I mean, he was raised by some people who they were eating fish out from the wilds, and they were eating chicken that they were producing themselves. They were keeping chickens, and that is better than producing genetically modified creatures to consume. But at the same time, you go, okay, well, how big of a footprint is that? If you're eating, how many people are in the world? Can we all eat just free-range hens? Because, you know, or whatever, and wild fish. I mean, it was a while ago, but I heard that the larger fish species, like, I don't know if the date has changed since maybe people have been more responsible. No, but back, you know, maybe 10 years ago. I don't think, maybe 15.
We haven't got more responsible 10 years ago.
But
we've added 1 billion people.
Yeah, but back then people were saying, they were projecting that all the large species that we, like, of fish, mostly that we're eating and whatever, will be cleaned out of the oceans by 2025. Well, that's just around the corner now. How are the ocean species doing?
Oh, that's
you know,
that's
it's
a year and a half away,
about, right?
Less than 2.
Anyway, Killing Eve season 2. I don't know. I guess Sandra Oh is an all-right actress and everything, and it's kind of a silly story, and I gotta admit, I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed the first season. I enjoyed this one too. I can't imagine that they'll make another season, but who knows? I mean,
some shows just go on and on.
And at the same time, I'm watching this and I'm going, oh, this isn't very believable. And is it really very healthy to be making psychopaths sexy? It seems wrong. When you're watching it, you're like, oh, I don't want to find this person at all appealing, because, right? Anyway, but at the same time, I enjoy it. So, I enjoy watching it, I'll admit it. 525.77, bottom of the stack. So bad. It was like watching, I don't know if I can say these words on YouTube. It was like watching a filmmaker from the 80s masturbating, if you know what I'm saying with that.
Masticating.
I could say masticating. Okay.
That's just chewing, folks, so don't get all upset.
Because I don't know if I'm allowed to say what I want to say on YouTube. I hope you just figured out what I was saying. So, but then at this, you know, you're watching this later and you're thinking, okay, am I going to see at the end of the movie, this is a story about such and such filmmaker, and now, no, it's not. So it's not even about watching some big filmmaker from the 80s masticating it on screen for you to have to watch for 2 hours. This went over for over 2 hours. And this guy it says it was based on true, and what wasn't true was even more real, or something like that, but whatever. So it's like watching some guy that wanted to be famous and made lots of films when he was like in his backyard and in his mom's house and whatever, and then he didn't end up being. So it's like it's watching a nobody from the 80s who wanted to be a filmmaker and didn't be one masturbating on screen for you to have to watch for over 2 hours. Terrible. So go ahead and talk about
Michael Moore, eh?
Yeah, you got it.
No more Moore.
Where to invade next?
Where to invade next? Woohoo! So I think this was done in 2017. 2015.
Okay.
Now here's a guy, he's complaining about George Bush Jr.
Yep. Oh, you have lots of time.
Back in the day, in 2000, Michael Moore, Phil Donahue, and a few other luminaries. I don't know if Susan Sarandon was involved. Could easily have been. They were encouraging, not just encouraging, they're out campaigning for Ralph Nader for president. What? They're splitting the left vote. No, so when you get a stupid idiot like Ross Perot splitting the right vote, I stand up and cheer. That's the way Bill Clinton came, not down the middle, but kind of like down the left. Of course, there are all sorts of nifty lefties out there who just cannot stand Bill Clinton because he made the cardinal sin of making himself electable. They'd love to be sitting on the sidelines, sitting on their hands. I'm going to tell you where the thumbs are, but they're twiddling both of them. While stuff happens, like folks, right-wing folks like Donald Trump stuffing the Supreme Court with people who are going to get rid of, and did get rid of, Roe versus Wade, Roe v. Wade. Is that what it is? Something like that. You don't go around doing these sorts of things. So, boy, did he learn. Like 4 years later, they caught this on tape. Donahue, Michael Moore, and a few other lefty luminaries were trying to encourage Ralph Nader not to run in 2004. He still ran, and that might have been enough to make a difference in the election so that Bush baby Jr. could steal the election in Ohio. But, they gave Bush baby Jr. the advantage of incumbency. So it isn't the same thing. It's not as though they were able to pull the plug. They tried, but they lost 2 elections. Helped lose 2 elections. Their influence alone could have been enough to allow Bush to steal the 2000 election and steal the election again in 2004. Shameful. Michael Moore. And he's still out there. This is, 15 years after helping Bush baby steal the election inadvertently, like he didn't do it intentionally or something like that. He might as well have done it intentionally. Here he is, like waving the flag around and all this sort of stuff. He might as well be using it to wipe his prodigious posteriors. Or should that be posterior? Well, there's so much of it. We'll use the plural. His plural posteriors. So what he's doing is he's gallivanting around the world to find countries that do various things better than the United States does. Woohoo! Of course, he isn't looking at things overall. He's just cherry picking certain things. Oh, but it's not the whole world. It's Europe. Oh, with one exception. He manages to go across the Mediterranean and hit Tunisia. Oh. So what's he, it's for women's rights for Tunisia. What religion is dominant in Tunisia, do you think, in northern Africa?
Why don't you tell us?
Well, it's Islam. And so they're supposed to have something like an abortion law. Maybe it's total free abortion since 1973. When was Roe v. Wade? 1973. I don't think it was total access to abortion, but how does that get better? So they showed a doctor in a abortion clinic in presumably Tunis, someplace in Tunisia, small little country by comparison with the United States. But I was looking around. The doctor wasn't wearing any on screen. The doctor wasn't wearing head covering, but every woman I saw in there was wearing a head covering. This is not the kind of country you want to set up, I'm talking about Tunisia, set up as a beacon for women's rights. And then...
My hair's wet.
What was that?
My hair is wet. That's why my hair is covered.
No, there we go. Yeah, it'd get cold when you got long hair. And I've been there, done that. I used to have hair. And then, way back when, I used to have long hair. And it takes a long time for it to dry out. And as it's doing so in Canadian weather, not just winter weather, it can be spring weather or fall weather, it can get a little cool, a little chilly. Anyway, yeah, you're not... it's not as though I'm telling you, put that head covering on.
I still have
but
hair
this leads into what I was leading into, because they had this politician, like he was. What they'd done is they'd elected fundamentalists. I don't think he called them fundamentalists necessarily. He should have. But fundamentalist Muslims to power in Tunisia after they got overthrew the dictator and got something like democracy. And like they were going to get rid of was it abortion? I believe it was. And then the women hit the streets and they demonstrated, and they were able to change the leader's mind. Now let's see how much it was changed. He was saying, he was kind of steepling, as I recall, which is what people do, not just guys, when they're nervous. And I guess I'm kind of steepling here. Well, it's supposed to be part of body language. Steepling. It gets really bad when people have crumpled steep.
Yeah. Well, that's like when your hands are really hurting, though, you do that.
Well,
I guess it could be misread.
It's a sufficient but not a necessary condition. Did you say necessary? Anyway, it's not a guaranteed thing. There's not an equivalent sort of thing. You could be going like this because you're
cold. Yeah.
Or you could be not receptive, like lots of you folks at home would love Michael Moore and Nifty Lefties, who are sitting there like this. You are just not very receptive to what I'm saying. The classic one is out of one of the books I got on body languages. They show Dr. Spock, not Mr. Spock. So he's the guy who was talking about treating kids maybe with a little bit of leniency, I guess he was big in the 50s, 60s, 70s or something like that. So Dr. Spock is speaking, he's supposed to be some sort of psychological expert, speaking to a bunch of cops. And instead of focusing on Dr. Spock, they're kind of looking over his shoulder at the audience. Every one of them, it's about 30 to 50 guys are sitting there like this. They're not very receptive to what Guy is saying. Anyway, getting back to this leader of Tunisia, the fundamentalist. He's saying the state has no business in the affairs of the family. I'm not quoting exactly. Isn't that wonderful? He says, I tell my wife to put on her head covering, and she does, but the state has no business telling me. Michael Moore is so stupid, he lets this pass. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He should have been saying, hey, that's not what you do on this. I know that's what you do. I know that's what you and your buddies do, you guys that are running the country. But don't say it. That's how stupid Michael Moore is. Unbelievable. But that's what the guys, I'm not quoting word for word, but check it out. I advise you check this out. Don't buy it, whatever you do. Don't keep on funding this.
No, you can borrow it from the library.
Fabulous
for free,
furry freak. But that's So he's going to Iceland. And Iceland had a big meltdown in 2008. Their economy basically went kaput. And it's not like what happened in the rest of the world. I think it got hit worse than any country in at least the so-called civilized world in the wake of 2008. So he was talking to a prosecutor, the prosecutor that sent the leaders of many of their banks to jail. Apparently something like real jail, or as real as it gets in Scandinavia. and because he talks about jails in Norway, and they're kind of like joke jails. Joke jails. There you go. A little alliteration for you folks at home. Look that up in your pumpkin language. You should know alliteration if you've been a little bit to university. How much time have we got? 5?
Let's keep going. You have like 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Less and less as you're not going.
That's the way it goes. I'll have to cover this in another one, but I'll finish up about Iceland. So, did the American economy just go kaput in 2008? What do you think? Did people get hugely? No. The depression lasted for 4 quarters, and more than 2 of those quarters were presided over by the Republicans. A little less than 2 quarters by the Democrats. So it's the last quarter, or not quarter, half of 2008 and the first half of 2009. The Icelandic economy went kaput. It's a different situation. Now, the bankers in the United States, many of them should have gone to jail. And none of them should have got bailed out the way they did. They should have been asking for bail. Different kind of bail. Hey, and I don't think they should have got bail, even though they might not have been flight risks or whatever. But we'll be talking more about all these other places that he thinks are just wonderful and grand. 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will talk about Norway. The jail system, he's there with someone, it's wonderful. It looks like a country club. He's there with a guy who's committed murder, right? He doesn't tell you until well into it that these are the guys who are on their best behavior. They're the ones that are getting ready for rehabilitation. So the guy for murder got 11 years. Well, you can't do that. Well, you can in Norway, because you don't have the same rifts in society that you have in North America, not just American society, where you got people from all over the world, from all sorts of classes and different like that. You can't do that. But, you go to their maximum security jail, and you're supposed to be all prepared. Oh, it's going to be all, oh man, they've got a huge big color TV. It's way better than ours. They've got wonderful showers, all this individual showers, so they don't have to worry about getting beaten up in showers and stuff like that. So, it's not the same. The society is not comparable in Norway. It's almost everyone looks kind of like Hollywood, handsome or pretty or stuff like that. What are you going to do? Where you got people from all over the world in the United States. People who don't have the same values. Check in. I'm going to be covering more. Take care.